If you can tell a joke, you can write a novel. What does that mean? How are the two of them connected? How can telling a joke make you a better writer? We're going to be answering those questions and more, and we're starting right now. Believe it or not, there is a link between joke telling and writing a novel. If you can tell a joke, you can also write a novel, because the same things that go into a joke also go into writing a novel. The only difference is a novel is much longer. In order to understand that, we have to first analyze a joke, and then we can compare it to a novel and see how the two of them are related. I first have to tell you a joke, and then we can analyze it. There is a man in a bar. It's late, it's dark, and it is raining. It is time for him to go home. He looks outside the window and sees the rain falling, and he doesn't want to take the long way home because he knows he will be soaked by the time he gets there. He decides to take a shortcut. So he leaves the bar and he runs across the street and he crosses through the cemetery. He runs as fast as he can, going in between the tombstones and the trees. It's dark and he can't really see where he's going. And all of a sudden, he falls. A big thud. He looks up and he realizes he has fallen into an open grave. He can't believe what has happened. He tries to climb out, but he can't because he keeps sliding back down the mud because of all the rain. He tries again and again, and he gives up because he knows he's not going to get out. He decides to wait until morning, and then he will be able to climb out. A few blocks away, there is another man, and he looks outside and he too wants to go home, and he realizes it's raining. So he decides to take a shortcut through the cemetery. So he leaves the bar, and he runs across the street, and he runs into the cemetery, and he runs through the tombstones and around the trees, and all of a sudden, there's a big thud. He looks up and he realizes he has fallen into an open grave. He tries to climb out, but he can't because of all the mud. He keeps sliding back down. He tries again and again, but to no luck. And all of a sudden, there's a tap on his shoulder. He looks over and he sees someone standing behind him saying, "You're not getting out." Well, he got out. Now, let's take a moment and analyze that joke. And how does it work into you writing a novel? And a novel is broken up into 3 acts. So is a joke. The first act is the introduction, where we introduce the main characters. The second act is the buildup of the story, where it feels like it's going somewhere. When someone is telling you a joke, you can sense that there is movement in the joke. You realize it's going somewhere. The third act is the punchline, where you laugh. But in a novel, the third act is the resolution, where the good and the bad meet each other, and there is some form of resolution that brings an end to the novel. We know we don't introduce main characters in the second or third act. Just like in a joke, you introduce your main characters in the beginning. However, there are some exceptions where, yes, you can introduce a main character halfway through your novel, just like how the joke that I just told you has a main character being introduced halfway. It is possible at times to introduce a main character halfway, but for the most part, the main characters are introduced at the beginning of your story. Then we have the incident that gets them going, something that changes their daily life, just like you would in a novel. A joke does the same thing. Now the joke is off and running. Something is happening. Just like in the novel, in the second act, the characters have to face trials and tribulations in which they have to overcome in order for them to solve the problem at the end of the story. Just like in a joke, the story builds and then there's resolution at the end. When telling a joke, the person listening, has to sense that this joke is going somewhere. There has to be a feeling that this story is moving forward in order to reach the punchline. You don't want your joke to wander. And the same thing applies to writing a novel. The person reading has to sense that there is some kind of movement, that this story is going somewhere. You never want to write a novel that feels like the characters are just standing around talking without any drive, motivation, or goal. When writing a novel and telling a joke, it's like going down a train track. The joke itself is the train, but the track is where you're going. The train station is the punchline. The train station in your novel is the climax, where the good and evil have to face each other. But the whole time, the person listening to the joke or reading the novel can sense that there is a track, that this train is going somewhere. Now we come to the idea of how much information to put into your novel or the joke. When I told that joke, I mentioned that it was a bar. Did I mention the bar's name? No, because the name of the bar is not needed for the joke to be funny. Did I describe the bar in detail? No, but I did tell you it was at night and it was raining. Those two bits of information were needed in order for you to understand the joke. Because whenever someone hears a joke, they see it in their mind and they picture it happening, just like you do when reading a novel. You see it happening in your mind like a movie. The more information you're given, the easier it is for you to envision what is happening. Have you ever read a book in which you have no idea who's talking or where it's taking place? The more details you put into your novel or a joke, the easier it is for someone to understand what's happening. However, if you put too much detail, then the pacing of the joke or the novel is affected, because you don't want to put too much information that has nothing to do with the story. When I told that joke, I could have told you exactly who's in the bar, what it looks like, what beers are being sold, what the bartender looks like. The problem is that none of this is needed for the joke to be told. I could have described the cemetery in detail, but the fact that I told you it was a cemetery, it had tombstones and trees, that was enough for you to paint a picture in your mind. When telling a joke or writing a novel, it is all about that balance between how much information you give for someone to see what's happening. But if you give too much information, then you slow down your story. The people reading or listening to the joke, they don't need that much information in order for them to understand what's happening. However, when I told that joke, if I didn't mention that it was night or if it was raining, then the joke wouldn't have been funny, because why would the person have fallen into an open grave? Would he not have seen it? But the fact that it was dark and raining is why he fell in. He couldn't get out because all the rain turned everything into mud. So that was needed as well. But I didn't have to go into super detail as to how many tombstones there were, what the city's name was. None of that information was needed for the joke to be funny. As a writer, when you're writing your novel, you want to find that balance between how much information you give for the person reading to understand, as opposed to way too much information that just slows down your novel. The next time you tell a joke, analyze it, look at it, and wonder, what makes this joke funny? How much information is being given? Who's in it? Notice how when you tell a joke, there's the introduction, where you introduce the people and the location and atmosphere. And notice how you then start to tell what's happening in the joke. What are these people doing? How are they interacting with each other? And the person listening can clearly tell that this joke is going somewhere. It's leading to a third act resolution. And you can apply that same thinking to your novel. Of course, a novel doesn't have a punchline, and a novel is much longer, with more details, more characters, more subplots. Because realistically, when you tell a joke, there are no subplots. But when you tell a joke, you want to analyze it and realize this could actually make a novel. In fact, you could actually take a joke and make it into a full novel. So you can apply this thinking to your writing. What is the beginning? Who are the characters? What are their objectives? Because in all jokes, there is an objective. Somebody wants something, only to then have something silly happen at the end, which makes the joke funny. Because in a joke, you don't have people just standing around not doing anything. There's an objective, just like you would have in a novel. but a novel is much longer. So when you think of a joke and you think of a novel, you realize that they both have a 3-act structure that makes your novel and the joke work. A joke has a goal, that is to make someone laugh. Laughter is an emotion. When you write a book, your goal should be the same, to make someone feel. You're going somewhere. That ending should make someone feel something. They can laugh, or they can cry, or they can be angry. Your goal as a writer is to always make the reader feel. Look at Stephen King novels. You can't help but feel something. Fear, anger, sadness. Stephen King has this way of really making people feel. And making people feel is what makes you turn the page. When you read a phone book, do you feel anything? No. That's why people don't read phone books. But people like reading a Stephen King novel because they know they're going to feel something at some point when reading. Be it sadness, be it anger, but you are going to feel something. And as a writer, you want the same goal. You want the same objective. You want to know what it is you want your reader to feel. Do you want them angry? Do you want them sad? When you tell a joke, what do you want? You want the person to laugh. Of course you want to make them laugh. That's the whole point of a joke. When you write a novel, you have to ask yourself, what do I want the person reading this to feel? A joke without a punchline is a waste of time. A novel without an objective ending to make the reader feel is a waste of time at all. So when you tell a joke, you have a goal. When you're writing a novel, you have a goal. The joke is to make someone laugh, and your novel is to make them feel laughter, anger, or something. But there is an objective, a goal. And when you tell a joke, that's what you're aiming for. When you write a novel, you should be aiming for the same thing. It helps to have a theme. Most jokes don't actually have a theme. Some do, but for the most part, jokes are just silly things that make you laugh. But as a writer, if you know your theme, that truly helps make you a better writer because it gives you something to aim for. You have an objective and you know how to move towards it. Just like when telling a joke, you do have an objective. It's to make someone laugh. And that's why you tell the joke. When you write a novel and you have a message and a theme, that's why you write it. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my website. I'll leave a link down in the description below where you can check out my website where there is a ton of blogs that give you a tremendous amount of information on how to write a novel. And it can help you become the greatest writer you can be. Because that is what I want. I want to help you become the greatest writer you can be. If you like watching this video, you should watch my next video on intent and obstacles and how it can help you become the greatest writer you can be. In fact, I'm going to leave a link right here for that video and you can click on it right now and watch it.